90 minutes, the state Senate passed a bill that includes safeguards for people who lose services when their providers are suspected of fraud. It's an issue KARE 11 Investigates has documented extensively, uncovering many instances of people with disabilities losing their care. Danny Spiewak has this story live from the Capitol. Danny?
Well, the Senate debated this larger human services supplemental spending bill for a couple of hours today, but the provision around continuity of care really was not controversial. It appears to have pretty wide bipartisan support. And in a nutshell, it's just as you described. It would basically add more requirements for the Minnesota Department of Human Services to make sure that people don't lose the care they need when their services are disrupted due to fraud allegations. To crack down on Medicaid fraud, the Minnesota Department of Human Services has moved in recent months to suspend payments to providers suspected of gaming the system.
They just disappeared and never showed back up.
But as KARE 11 Investigates has uncovered, the scrutiny of high-risk Medicaid programs like integrated community supports has left people with disabilities stranded, losing the care and services they desperately need.
I'm scared. I don't want to be out in the streets with my baby.
DFL Senator John Hoffman took notice this legislative session.
This is a top priority in our committee.
At the top of Hoffman's human services spending package is a section about continuity of care, the process of ensuring people don't lose services when their providers lose funding because of fraud. The Department of Human Services has maintained that they have teams in place to ensure ongoing care, but this bill puts much stricter requirements on the agency.
There were people that were not getting the services they needed because of service disruptions. We can't have that.
Hoffman's bill requires DHS to establish and maintain a continuity of care team with sufficient staff capacity. The measure also mandates that DHS identify all clients impacted by a payment freeze and ensure there's a plan to keep their services going. Ultimately, the Senate passed the larger human services bill,
and its title agreed to.
Just a day after the House Ways and Means Committee advanced its own human services package to the floor, which includes continuity of care provisions plus anti-fraud measures.
To try and address many of the issues that many of us have been talking about for a few years, and many more will be talking even more about in the next year. So this continuity of care provision is moving forward in both chambers. If they can come together and negotiate across chambers over the final couple weeks of the session, it's a really good chance it could get to the governor's desk for signature. DHS, meanwhile, is supportive of these changes. They told us in a statement that they really like the idea, that they would work with the legislature with whatever bill they finalize. Back to you.
I think everyone certainly agrees that people with disabilities should not be left out in the cold because someone else committed fraud. So glad they're getting together on this one. Danny, thank you.
The Winona